Hey everybody, it's Steve with the Plastic Adventures podcast and toy community. And on today's episode of Plastic Bits, we're going to be talking about one of my very favorite hidden gem toy lines of the late 70s. It's Battlestar Galactica 3 3/4 inch by Mattel. So shown here is the initial run of 6 figures, which ended up being 7 in the long run. But we're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. Starting us off is Commander Adama, the chief officer of the Battlestar Galactica, followed by gold-plated goof-off Lieutenant Starbuck, whom I consider to be one half of the main duo of the show. And speaking of the other half, we were looking for an Apollo figure in this line and never got one. Apparently, it was for no other reason other than Richard Hatch not wanting to license out his likeness for the toys. Which is a total bummer. Because we're talking about a character who had equal importance to, say, like a Han Solo type. So it would have been like Star Wars with a Luke and really no Han Solo. The good news is that over the years and through the advent of 3D printing technology and casting, you can actually supplement your collection with some really cool custom-made 3 3/4 inch figures, commonly found on the likes of Etsy or even eBay. So if you're thinking about purchasing these figures, you are not going to find yourself Apollo-less, so to speak. But getting back on track, shown next here is Daggett in dark brown. And Daggett is some sort of weird spare base dog cyborg thing. I don't know if they were trying to shoot for some kind of like R2-D2 meets Chewbacca vibe here, but I don't really think the execution was very fantastic. And I do suspect that the repaint was just put in there so that they could fill out full cases of 8 figures for pack out. And moving on, we actually have one of the cooler designs from the show, which is the enemy robot drone cyborg thing. They're called the Cylons. They have a really cool sort of Trojan-inspired helmet. Featured vac metal. One thing I did find a little bit odd about this one, though, is that there's no articulation in the legs. Don't know if that was done as a cost-saving measure or what, but overall it really doesn't detract from the figure. After the Cylon, this green fella with the extra arms is called Ovion. And in the shows, Ovion or Ovions were actually like these intergalactic slave traders, so they were bad dudes. They were hanging out on the underside of this recreational planet that the crew found themselves on. Next, we have the Imperious Leader, which I gotta say is probably about the funkiest design of all of these figures. He looks like some kind of like space trout with an afro or something. Another cool thing that they did with Wave 1 is essentially come up with a couple of multi-packs. I mean, you could get 6 of the figures in one big pack, and then they actually released a second 4-pack which sported 3 bad guys and a Daggett. Another really neat thing about this line is that all of the packaging had that really sweet Mattel cross-cell art on the back. So when you have a look at the way that this was hand-painted and the way that the characters were arranged, they sort of repeated this in several of their lines, including Masters of the Universe. So good on Mattel. I think the back of the packages look great. So there was a wave 2, but this one was a little bit scaled back. This next wave that came out was actually, like all lines, one of the hardest waves to find, and it actually only featured 4 characters, one of which was a repaint. We ended up with the Cylon Commander, which had a really neat gold vac metal design. Bore, who was sort of like this strange pig person, one of the denizens on that recreational planet I was mentioning earlier. And he came with what looks like a giant turkey leg for an accessory. We also got the nefarious Baltar and his assistant Pepper Shaker, aka Lucifer, which was probably one of the neater figures in the line. It actually featured translucent plastic and is what I would consider to be one of the more visually interesting characters in the line. So far as I can tell, there was only one multi-pack released, and it looked to be some sort of a catalog mail-in or a premium, and you got the Cylon Commander, Dr. Pepper Shaker, and Baltar in that pack, in just a plain cardboard mailer, much the same as some of the Star Wars figures came out in from those Sears and JCPenney catalogs. One thing I will mention about these figures too is that no matter how cool the paint apps were, the cloth accessories, the little guns, there is a glaring omission on these toys. That's the fact that they didn't bother putting any paint on them for eyebrows, eyes, mouths, anything like that. So essentially you got these terrific figures that do almost have a little bit of a knockoff feel because they're lacking any sort of paint apps on the face. As you can see, put them up next to this Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker, who is also a very simple figure with very simple accessories and cloth accessory, and they went ahead and did some paint apps on the face. It just gives the figure a little bit more finished look. Paint apps aside though, these 1978 Battlestar Galactica figures from Kenner I think are a really great addition to your old 4-inch figure collection. They were perfectly in scale with Star Wars, so they could play with the Star Wars vehicles, and a lot of the designs look like they might have popped right out of the Star Wars universe. So overall, this is a rabbit hole I've been really excited to go down ever since that ill-fated trip to Xenophile in Richland after a decidedly tame trip to the Inland Northwest Toy Show. So there you have it, guys. It's a quick little look at the Battlestar Galactica figures. As any other line that's out there, the initial 6 to 7 figure offering is pretty easy to snag still on eBay at really good prices. Once you start getting up into your Bores, your Baltars, and Dr. Pepper Shaker, becomes a little bit more problematic. Also, those Cylons feature vac metal, so getting one in good shape is just next to impossible. That vac metal just kind of flakes off. But let me know what you think. Did this inspire you to take a look at a new toy line and maybe fall down the rabbit hole with me? Comment below. If I don't hear from you, I'll see you in the toy aisles.